Now, as a kid or as a teenager, do you remember when Pearl Harbor happened?
Yes, I do remember when Pearl Harbor happened. I was a young kid, and I remember my mom and dad kind of going berserk over it, like a lot of people did in those days. I was young, so it didn't really bang on me until I really got to listening, realized what was really happening. Then I was very impressed about all of it. And so in 1946, I joined the service. And 23 years later, I'm living in Wilmington.
Do you remember when World War II ended?
Yes. I was still living in my hometown, Virginia, and the day that they said the war was over, Japan had surrendered, the second bomb. Now, one time I did go through part of Japan after they had dropped the first bomb. It was level. Steel girders and buildings were just bent like a pretzel. We were on a train going through, so you could see all of this. It was an awesome sight, really, to see what one bomb could do. Streetcars had museums. Streetcars, after the bomb, the flash from the bomb, the light, actually made the portraits of the people in the streetcar on the side of the streetcar on the inside. Just a shadow, like a negative, inside the streetcar and inside of houses. This thing had gone off. So we was there right after that in 46, and a lot of flat places, so that's the only way you can describe it.
How were the Japanese people like towards American American soldiers?
How did they feel toward us? Well, most of them that were in the service were afraid. They acted like they were afraid. You get around a bunch of GIs, something's going to happen, we're going to goof it up. So there was a lot of tension, a lot of guarded words, guarded actions, and everybody was just watching it real careful, so to speak, on both sides. We were really the occupying people, and being the occupiers, you have a hard time deciding how you want to react or what you want to do. We didn't run around with guns or anything of that nature. They signed a peace treaty. Everything was pretty level, so everybody was just really trying to get along. So it wasn't all that much of hostility, except for some places they didn't really know what was going on. They hadn't received the word.
Can you tell me more about you going through Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
I went through Hiroshima and Nagasaki and Nagasaki. It was flat. Buildings were just boom. Buildings that had, like a 3-story building, for instance. there was no windows left, no doors, some of the walls, and a lot of those are just flat. It must have been one heck of a thing at that time when they dropped the first bomb. And how in the heck they decided to go on again, I don't know, but they did. There was a place called Kagoshima, Japan, which is in the southern part of Japan. There was a cliff. The women, most of them mothers, had been told that the American soldier was coming and that all we wanted to do was to rape the women and kill the kids. So a lot of these people were going to the end of this mountain in Kagoshima, Japan, and jumping off the mountain, committing suicide. And they would throw their kids off. That's a pretty hard thing to do. But it was actually happening. But they finally got all of that settled. People sort of settling together. Then, as most Americans are, next thing we're doing, we help them rebuild their houses. Which was good and worked out pretty good. So most of the GIs that were over there then was in a peacetime situation, and they wanted to help. It was just like you or I. We didn't start it, we didn't end it, but we got to live with it.
What was your job in the Army in Japan?
I was in radar. Our defense system. We would control fighter aircraft. If we picked up a radar blip on our radar, we could scramble the aircraft from a fighter field and direct them to the aircraft. And then they could take care of the rest of it. But theirs was to detect, direct, and intercept. That was our whole job at the radar. And we had little radar sites all over the place. Stick them on a mountaintop, on a hillside, down on the ocean. But that was their main purpose, was to detect.
When did you go to Korea?
Korea in 1950, 51. Incheon. That's where they first went in, the first wave. We went in and set up the radar again. That was to direct the aircraft. And we could run what we call a bomb raid. We could send the aircraft to a certain spot and say, we don't want to see it anymore. And it would disappear. Boom, boom, boom.
What else do you remember from the Korean War?
Pardon?
What else do you remember from the Korean War?
What did I?
What else do you remember from the Korean War?
Wondering if you're going to be shot at during the night when you go to sleep, or get up the next morning and do the shooting. In 1950, you were always just a little bit cautious. The Marines went into Incheon in the landing barges. We came in later, went inland and set the radar and the defense system up. And our home was a 16-man squad tent, lived in a tent. And got pretty cold in Korea. The temperature was way below zero. You could spit and it'd freeze before it hit the ground, believe it or not. And we lived in a tent, it's a big tent, 16 men to one tent. And we had kerosene stoves, little pot-belly stove about that big around. And we used kerosene to heat the heaters inside the buildings, which was on a 55-gallon drum outside the building on a stand. And most of the people took to, when we get material in from the States, it'd be in a wooden box. So we'd save all the wood boxes we could. We'd build a door to put on the tent. That would help keep the cold air out.
Did you witness any combat in Korea?
I personally no. Because like I say, my job was radar, not to combat. We direct the aircraft to where to go to do the combat. I like that a lot better than me doing it. There was a few times when we'd go on alert. Some things would happen, and you get nervous, like anybody would. But most of mine was just the everyday job, which I was thankful for. And most of the people there were about like us. They didn't really like the situation. They didn't want it to go on, but they couldn't do a thing about it, nor could we. So once they all decided to have a little peace, then things started trying to work out. So at the end, we ended up with a pretty good relationship with the people, and they have got a pretty good relationship with us. Now today, we still have North and South Korea. North Korea is being controlled by China. China doesn't like us to start with, and we don't like China. I've got a fly swatter from China. Everything plastic made in China. What'll it end up, I have no idea. It was a good experience. But a guy that left school in the 4th grade, it was quite an experience. And I went on to be a master sergeant after 23 years. And I learned a lot of things in a lot of different ways. So I guess you could say that the service actually saved my life, so to speak. I was going nowhere at home, working in the service station. That wasn't going to last forever. So there was no education on my part, and there wasn't anything going on. And I just didn't want to become a coal miner.